Hi, my name is Santosh Nachu. I'm the general manager of EBIS, and with me today is Larry Shack from the Greater Toronto Airport Authority. Hi, Larry. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here with you and your audience again today to sort of talk about anything and everything to do with airports and aviation.
Wonderful. Well, let's just get started right away, Larry. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into aviation and with GTAA and a little bit about GTAA for the audience. That'd be wonderful.
Well, my journey has been one that I think many people in your audience will certainly mimic. My father used to take me to the airport to watch airplanes when I was a little boy, and that sort of that piques my interest and certainly has kept my interest for going on 44 and a half years now, almost 45 years coming up in July.
Uh,
And I've done everything from aircraft manufacturing. I worked on the assembly line when I first started in 1979, to working for U.S. legacy carriers in the United States in multiple cities. Then moving back to Canada in Vancouver for a period of time, again from a U.S. legacy carrier to a ground handling company. And then because you don't have enough winter experience, we're going to send you to Vail, Colorado for a season. So got some winter experience in Vail, Colorado.
okay.
Back to Vancouver, wandering even further still back to Toronto after 24 years. So 15 years in the States, 9 years in Vancouver, all combined, 24 years back home to Toronto, Canada, where I was born and raised, and then working for a Canadian charter carrier that had a period of time until 2010. Then with the Greater Toronto Airports Authority now for just coming up on 14 years this November. But I've had 12 different roles here at the Airport Authority, anything from airport duty manager to terminal manager. And currently, my current assignment is, and it just changed. That's why I'm sort of going to take a pause to make sure I capture it, articulate that exactly the way it needs to be. I am the Associate Director, Airside Ground Operations, Strategy, and Programs. Sounds all encompassing, and trust me, there is a lot to that
Wow.
portfolio as well too.
Well, congratulations on the new role, and certainly seems quite comprehensive, and would love to learn more about that. And I was going to say, there have to be worse places in the world than Vail, Colorado, and Vancouver, right? I mean, just absolutely gorgeous areas of the world. So
Yes, when I said in the
feel too
United
bad there.
States, so it actually was Las Vegas first, a little bit of
Okay.
Orange County, California in there. Yeah, some pretty rough assignments as we go
Yeah,
along the
sounds
journey there for sure.
yeah, sounds like it. Well, that's great. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the Greater Toronto Airports Authority.
So the Greater Toronto Airports Authority was born back in 1996 when Transport Canada had all the Canadian airports under the federal jurisdiction. The not-for-profit organizations were born and built and became Greater Toronto Airports Authority. And I say airports because we also have the rights to develop the Pickering lands. That's an area just generally east of Toronto. If and when
Yeah.
we get to that certain time that lands needed to be developed for a second airport, uh, we will get there. But for now, it's just Toronto Pearson, and we're about to embark upon a significant growth strategy coming up.
Wonderful. And in your new role, it seems to be an expanded role, it sounds like, with the strategy of airport ground operations, et cetera. What does that encompass, and how does that work within the larger ecosystem here, right? Of airlines as well as ground handlers. How does that whole relationship work with the airport authorities?
So we are really part of three key elements of the ecosystem of the airport, if you will. There's the airline that wants to fly here. It's the airline that may have their own resource pool of labor to provide the support ground handling initiatives, or they could contract that out to a third party. And that is done by the third party ground handlers that are out there known industry wide, and some just smaller organizations as well too that can provide that level of service. The third piece of it is it all has to work together. As the landlord of the airport operation here, we have to sort of manage the infrastructure, provide the infrastructure to support the airlines to grow and continue to grow, and the infrastructure that's necessary for the ground handlers to have offices, training facilities, and anything else that makes an airport tick successfully every single day, 24/7. No different than the casinos at Las Vegas. If you look at the front doors of an airport, there are no locks. The airports here are 24/7 and they're open all the time. There's no front door lock. It's always going 24/7.
Gotcha. And um, do you also provide some of those resources in terms of manpower, or is that always provided either by the airlines or the third-party ground handlers?
So we'll provide the infrastructure support to an airport's operation. So in the wintertime, yes, it's our teams that do the snow removal. In the summertime, it would be our teams that do the grass cutting of all the acres and acres that we have here that need to be cut of grass. The paint teams that have to replenish the paint refresh for all the requirements on the airfield, concrete repairs, all the different requirements to keep an airport's infrastructure up and running. And that's just on my direct reports on the inside. In the terminals, it's like maintaining your house. You have to maintain the building, paint, refresh, plumbers, trades, electricians, anything and everything to sort of maintain a building's infrastructure.
Wonderful. Okay. No, thank you for kind of delineating all of that, and obviously court. I mean, you're orchestrating all of this to happen smoothly on, as you said, 24/7 basis with you know millions of passengers, I'm sure,
Yeah.
flowing in and out on a yearly basis, right?
And let me give you some of those perspective on some of those numbers. So our current numbers that we are just about 1,800 employees at the Greater Toronto Airports Authority. The total population of the ecosystem of Toronto Pearson is north of 40,000. So that's
Wow.
all the airlines, all the ground handlers, the flight kitchens, the fueling companies, the government agencies that are working here, US Customs, Canada Customs, the screening companies that are here, and probably about close to 500 cleaners that keep the airport clean.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, quite the large operation. That's an interesting scale for sure. So we'll see each other. I'm looking forward to meet you in person here at the upcoming GHI, the Ground Handling International show in Toronto in a couple of weeks. And I understand that you'll be on a panel. Actually, I think it's one of the first panels to kick off the show. Could you say a little bit more about what you will be discussing and what kind of the main topics that are coming up there?
Well, a lot of things that we're going to talk about on the call this afternoon will certainly be repeated there as well too. But it's that getting the industry back to where it needs to be. What are some of the successes and what are some of the challenges that we're seeing now, and how do we overcome them? And what are some of the best practices? Do we do this in isolation? Absolutely not. Do we talk to other airports around the world? Absolutely, we do that to sort of engage with them and communicate and say, oh, yeah, it's working well over there. It's not working well here. Let's bring that and give it a try here. We'll do some creative things. It's innovation, it's technology that's going to make us successful, getting us to a point of where our strategy is greenhouse gas emissions are down to zero.
Yep.
We have some very aggressive targets to get to that point by 2030, and I'd say, wow, that's pretty far away. Not really. In the scheme of things, we're only a few years away. We want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions over 2010 by 45%. By 2050, it's a little bit more ambitious. We want to get down to zero greenhouse gas emissions. And some of it is things that we can't control, and some of it is technology that's not even developed to help us get there.
Wonderful. Okay,
That's
so gotcha. So greenhouse gases and getting to net zero, which is certainly a key outcome or objective that airports around the world are shooting for. I mean, certainly, I think Europe, certainly the European airports tend to drive that a lot, and so it seems like that's also very much the case here
yeah.
in the Americas, right? But
I mean, if we had the capabilities tomorrow, we would make everything electrified as best we can. But at the terminal infrastructure, just getting the necessary power off the power grid. But one of the innovative things that we're sort of leading the charge on, no pun intended there, of course, is to sort of, we are creating a hydrogen fueling
mm,
station. So it'll be here based at the airport. In fact, we already have municipalities that have public transit buses that say, ooh, you're on the leading edge. We would like to get a piece of that action. So we know that we're working closely with other organizations outside of the airport that would have access to hydrogen fueling. We will be the first hydrogen fueling station here in Ontario, which could provide two things. One, hydrogen fuel, which burns clean, and two, use hydrogen to fuel a generator to generate electricity to where we can't get electricity. We can provide electricity as an alternative fuel source. It's very interesting.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Yes.
and is that project underway, or is that something that's planned for
If
the
I
future?
could turn the camera and show you pictures, it's very close to being ribbon cutting ceremony only weeks away. So
Oh, wonderful! Congratulations. That sounds exciting. Um, so is that part of kind of the Lyft strategy that we've heard about, and I think even your CEO's mentioned it on a recent article, if I'm not mistaken. Could you, first for the audience, tell us what Lyft stands for and how that fits into this overall play?
it wasn't the original acronym that we created, but
Okay.
LIFT, capitalized, stands for long term investment in facilities and terminals. And like many airports going through COVID and just the world in general, deferred capital spendings, right? Where revenues are generated by passengers that pass through the airport, airplanes that fly to the airport, and we're going past that deferred capital spending. We now need to play catch up.
Mm.
So today we have shy of 45 million passengers that pass through the airport. Pre-pandemic, we were the first Canadian airport to hit the 50 million mark, 50.6 million passengers in 2019, with 430,000 aircraft movements. In the next 10 years with the Lyft program, we will get to 65 million passengers. And then
Wow.
once that's achieved, beyond that. And we're no different than many airports around the world where it's time to reinvest in their airport infrastructure. And a lot of airports are growing. JFK, Chicago, Los Angeles is going through it, a great growth strategy as well, too, just to name a few of the airports that in North America that are growing, and globally, too, very much so. Currently, 175 destinations that we fly to, 40% of all Canada's air cargo, passes through Toronto Pearson.
Oh,
We are
okay.
the we are the second largest employment zone in Canada, and we're also the number one airport in North America, as rated by ASQ, for airports that are greater than 40 million. We held that mark for 5 consecutive years, but then COVID sort of put a pause on a lot of things. And yes, Canadian airports did struggle to bounce back, but last year we were very proud to sort of regain our title as the number one.
Well,
Once you get to number one,
congratulations.
it's hard to maintain it,
Yeah,
but to be the number one airport by the ASQ Airport Service Quality was a significant milestone for us and well celebrated within the organization.
that's great. Okay, so this is kind of that rebirth, if you will, of hey, we've had this deferred capital expenditure, and we're going to really push that to modernize towards all these initiatives that you'd already mentioned to support that demand and growth.
Yeah, yes, and to push that even further forward, really, there's three major projects within the Lift program. One is the accelerator. That's the accelerator program. So work that has been deferred. What do we need to do accelerate to get the big work going? The big work is really the gateway project, which will start in 2026, which is significant new facilities, expansion of our existing Terminal 1 to add more capacity there. And the older terminals, Terminal 1, which was brand new in 2004, we're now 2024. That's 20 years. We need to
Yeah,
reinvest in our existing, what we call our new Terminal 1, and make it newer again and bring it back up to life. The older terminal, Terminal 3, which was built and commissioned in the late 80s, 89, that now needs to be revitalized as well too. And to do that continued growth from 45 to 65 million, we need to build existing land into new terminals. They will rise from the ground, and we will do
I
that.
see. Okay, wonderful. And what is increasing this demand? I mean, certainly we can understand, COVID reduced it, right? You said from 50 and you just got back up to about 45 million, but the projection to 60 over the next couple of years and the need to drive this additional investment, where's that demand coming from?
The growth is there. In fact, we know that all of the airlines have increased demand just this year alone in 2024, which is not even half over yet. We've already added 5 new airlines through our Air Service Development team. And of
Wow.
those 5 airlines that have started, 3 have been airlines that have served Toronto Pearson previously, stopped service for whatever reason, and have now come back. So it's exciting to see some of the new carriers and existing carriers that have returned back to operations here at Toronto Pearson. That's because the demand is there. And don't forget, we have 2 very large airlines that operate here. Air Canada by far is our largest operator and airline that operates out of Toronto. They have close to 50% of our operation. WestJet is our number 2 carrier, and they have a significant, both of them have a significant operation here at Toronto Pearson. And the balance of the carriers make up the balance of the operation, both not only in passenger air traffic, but also cargo activity as well too. Both those airlines, WestJet and Air Canada, have had dedicated freighters, which has grown exponentially our cargo operation as well too, significantly.
Got it. Understood. And so, I mean, with this demand, I mean, I'm sure there's other challenges, especially from an infrastructure standpoint. Certainly, we talked about capacity and how you're making investments to grow that. But what are some of the other challenges that you're coming across or you're seeing in order to meet this demand?
Well, I think we're not much different than many other airports in some regard is labor. I need to talk about labor. Uh, the, the airlines, the ground handlers, ourselves, the airport authority, all reduced staffing, and in some cases, some very senior people executed retirement plans earlier, maybe than they had anticipated to. And you hear the expression "building back." We are definitely building back, but we're a lot greener, a lot
Mm,
leaner in the experience level that's out there, and that has an impact. So we say, oh, have you met your headcount requirements? In some cases, yes. But again, it's that experience levels that we have. Even in skilled trades, plumbers, electricians, to get those positions, critical positions filled, skilled people that are driving airside buses that have to have a requirement for licensing of buses, even that in itself has been a challenge to get all those people brought back in and build those years of experience. We like to refer to Toronto Pearson as a 2-season airport. One, winter. Season number 2 is construction. That's all there is. And really, if you didn't know that, Satish, the code name for airport is perpetual construction projects. Airports are always under construction, and we're going to hit the largest construction this airport has ever seen in quite a few years.
interesting. No, that is fascinating, and this certainly seems to be, and this is we talk to our customers both on the commercial side as well as even general aviation, and this is a common theme in regards of labor capacity. But back to your point, labor capacity from an experience standpoint, and I would love to dig a little bit deeper there and get your sense for, is it just a function of, certainly there's one aspect of it, which is you had a lot of experience leave and likely not boomeranging back. However, do you also believe that there's just fundamental lack of supply of experience, or do you just believe it's a transitory problem that over time, with experience and kind of focus on it, you can get back to the levels that you experienced before?
Remember, I was saying when I first started the conversation here this afternoon with us, we talked about how my dad inspired me, and I sort of was a kid in the candy store, sort of, wow, this is great. This is a great place to be. Don't see that as so much anymore. It's
Mm,
a job, and that's how young people sometimes see it today. It's not a career path that it used to be. It can be, and that's an opportunity. As I talked about through my career, as I've sort of grown into the various roles throughout my different times, not so much so today, but if we can get 2 or 3 or 4 small percentage pies of that people that we can inspire to become the next great people that are going to be here for their entire careers, that'll be great. There are probably 1/3 of people that are transitioning out each couple of years. And then they said, no, this is not for me. I could go work someplace else and it's just a job. It's a tough job.
yeah.
It can be very hot in the summertime and very, very cold in the wintertime working out there. And you're doing it for what? Either the airline or the ground handler. If you're working on the air side, in the terminals, maybe dealing with the passengers that are stressed for traveling or the anxiety levels are up there, but it's always our responsibility to provide that best level of exceptional customer service. Either it's delivering the bags in a timely manner, getting loaded on time, making sure they don't get caught in the rain, providing wayfinding to somebody who may have said for the thousandth time, where's the closest washroom? You say that 1,001 times to tell them the closest washroom is just around the corner, ma'am or sir.
Got it. So it's getting back to that. I mean, we're in a service business ultimately, and um, being able to provide that exceptional service. I mean, getting back to maintaining that number one spot, as you know, for service quality, is certainly going to require that level of effort, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And and I mean, you mentioned this, right? In terms of, yeah, maybe it's not as sought after of a profession or career, but you also hit upon something there, which is, it's let's working around planes and on the ground operations is there's also, I'm assuming, a safety concern, or safety is a common theme. I'm assuming, and with the experience levels dropping, is that becoming more of a concern for you as well?
So the industry had what's called SMS, safety management systems. Airlines, airport authorities, ground handlers all have robust safety data that comes to them through analyzing what happens to their day-to-day operation. And yes, we have seen an uptick in safety issues, both minor and some significant events on occasion where we've had issues that we've had to deal with. But again, one of the things that happened to us during COVID, we were sort of, here's the ask, become data rich. And areas where we weren't exploring before or had the ability to analyze, we became very data rich. And how do we use that data? We share the data, share the information, collaborate with our business partners, the airlines, the airport, the ground handling companies, the flight kitchens, the fueling companies, and share that information with them. We have regular meetings for both the ground handlers, the safety committees that are out there, various committees, and share that information and understand what best practices. You're trialing something, we're going to try something different and share that information. That is sort of what will bring us back even better and stronger and safer. I think what's important to understand is airlines have, and here's a couple of acronyms: SOP versus OTP, standard operating procedures or standard operating guides versus OTP, on time performance. The pressure to operate should never be compromised by
Mm.
procedure for safety.
Absolutely agree, right? I mean, safety is always number one in
Yeah,
these types of operations, correct? So,
it has to be. The industry has had sacrifices over the years, even recently, where there's been fatalities. And if you don't learn from that lesson, and something, yes, may have happened in Asia or Europe or South America for that matter, or even here in North America, it's important to understand what has changed in the industry and what we need to do to continue to make it better and safer for our employees. Part of it is going to be technology. The solutions that have changed today, where it's not just brute force to get that airplane out and successfully on time, where now technology has a greater solution to that. Autonomous vehicles, drones, equipment, artificial intelligence that help us be smarter in the baggage systems that we have without the airport. Those are all tools that will help us become better as we move forward.
wonderful. And actually, let's talk about that. So you mentioned, the access to labor, and that, I think certainly alluding to, it made the demand, right, or at least the attractiveness is probably not as high as it used to be, and so therefore that's going to affect the supply of labor, all else being equal, and then safety being a concern, et cetera. So autonomous vehicles, on the ramp, are certainly not that far away. I think there's quite a few companies out there that have invested in that. So, what is, as part of your part of Lyft and just your overall investment as an airport authority, like what role do autonomous vehicles play for you, and are you experimenting with that type of technology today?
Well, there's no stone that's unturned to us, and we've been certainly working with industry partners that are out there with autonomous vehicles that are certainly available there now, and early technology even so much so as baggage delivery directly by an autonomous vehicle to and from the airplane, which was like, that's never going to happen. But
Yeah.
yes, it is going to happen. All these things are real. Um, a perimeter fence around the airport is called the primary security line. That fence has to be checked regularly all the time. Either can be done by drones, autonomous vehicles with sophisticated cameras, runway inspections have to be done. That's where autonomous vehicles will help us be that much more efficient and safer as we go forward into the future. Most definitely, for sure.
Got it. Wonderful. That's exciting. More to come. I
Absolutely.
presume there. So, okay. And you mentioned you've gotten a lot more data rich. Could you share a little bit more of how exactly you accomplished that? Are there certain tools, software that you use to help with that, or is this more just an overall just philosophy change on your side?
Uh, no, it really is a combination of getting the right head count to provide that, um, creating new tasks for some of our eyes and ears that are out there. I'll use an example of one that sort of was a good one to hit home. We asked the airlines that partner with us and the ground handlers out there who is required to do an arrival FOD walk. FOD is foreign object debris, piece of stone, piece of wheel, piece of zipper, wheel that could have fallen off of a suitcase, piece of concrete, anything that's out there, a little stone or pebble. And everybody raised their hand and said, yes, 100% of the time we must do arrival FOD walks. That's a true statement. That's absolutely true. But let's see from data. So we had a requirement from our aviation safety officers, ASOs, that are out there. You are now required to do some observations on a regular basis. Look, it's COVID, we're not busy, you have the time. Give us the data. And to this day, we still continue to do the data. And at first, we said, oh, we're nowhere near 100%. Collectively, as an airport community, we're much lower than that. But it's a requirement. Everybody says, yes, we do it every time for 100%. So what's missed? So as we started to share that data with the community and said, it's your SOP, your standard operating procedure to do that. What are you doing to prove that? So that's where we created the data, share the data, and it's helped the airlines significantly get back to where their SOP says thou shalt do an arrival FOD walk 100% of the time. And I can clearly say, even though we're not even halfway through the month of June, we are 100% across all of the observations we made for all of the airlines, all of the ground handlers that are out there. Now, if you ask me, well, when we started this, where were we at? We're in the mid 60s. We've come
Oh,
a
wow.
long way. That is a significant improvement. That's just one small step, if you will, to so we see that where data becoming data rich has helped improve the safety of the airport. And
Yeah.
the industry, and I share this many times, we talk about foreign object debris and the damage that it causes. In the industry wide, it can be in the billions of dollars annually, industry wide. An aircraft engine that gets damaged, an aircraft that gets grounded, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, an aircraft engine in the millions of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have customers that are ground handlers and commercial airlines, and even something as simple as not checking the shear pin on your tow bar, right? And that can just rip their landing gear off, and the amount of damage that causes, and just simple things that have huge leverage, right? And just if you can figure out what debris is sitting out there so it doesn't get sucked into the engines or something along those lines. I think those
Yeah,
are important elements to keep track of that could save
yeah.
money and lives as well, right? In a lot of cases.
I'll share this quick one with you. Earlier today, I was, for the third time in about 2 months now, introducing myself to an airline who was bringing on board new ramp leads. They've also brought on customer experience managers as well too. So front-facing managers, both above the wing and below the wing type operations. And I did this exercise with them. I made every one of them in this room of 10 people walk outside the room. And I did an exercise. And walk outside the room with me. I want you to come into the room. I want you to do three things. One, tell me the decade you were born in. Two, tell me the favorite musical group you were born in. And three, take a different seat. And you get the looks and like, what do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah.
They all come back into the room and they all sat down. And I said, I have a question for you. Were you expecting that? And typically I get the answer, no, we weren't expecting that at all. I just gave you the most valuable lesson you will learn working in this industry because they're all pretty green. They were between 1 and 2 years of seniority. I said, if you come into the attitude every day to work with the attitude, expect the unexpected, you'll be set up for success every day.
Mm.
As ramp leads, you have that responsibility. You know your schedule, what you're going to do hour to hour, all day long. But yet, if you expect the unexpected, you will set yourself up for success, you and your crew.
That's a
And gets a round of applause every time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's I'm certainly ingrains that into their memory, right? And that's a great
absolutely.
way to do that. So
And
wonderful.
I've had several stop me along the way a year or two later and said, they're knee deep in a sea of bags out there for whatever reason because of an IROP situation. And they said, Larry, you're absolutely right. It's warms my heart to sort of
Yeah,
pass that knowledge on to the next generation because people did that for me when I was younger in this generation of aviation and say, yep, this group has got it. And it's been great to inspire those for sure.
that's wonderful. Well, hey, Larry, thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience today that we didn't talk about?
No, I'm excited to meet everybody at the conference. I'll be obviously there. I have a number of conference one-on-one set up. Please grab me if you want to meet up with me and have a conversation. That's great. I don't do this in isolation. I am surrounded by an amazing team of talented people here that I work with at the Airport Authority. It's been a great career for me. 45 years coming strong, and it's like I've never worked a day in my life. That's how exciting it feels for me. So I'm
That's
excited to
awesome.
sort of share my thoughts at the conference and a chance to meet with you and your guests this afternoon.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. Will you have a booth at GHI? Or will you just be attending the panel and walking around?
We'll
What's
be
the
at the
best way to get a
panel.
hold of you?
I do have some one-on-one conference time set up with people. Certainly on the delegates list, you can set up some time to sort of spend time with
Yep.
me. Two of my team members will be there as well too. One of our senior directors will also be making a keynote speech on the second day of the conference. So I look forward to hearing with what Dwayne had to say in his presentation. That's Dwayne McIntosh, Senior Director Aviation Operations, will be there as well too.
Wonderful. And for those that may not be able to make it to GHI in a couple of weeks, how could folks get in touch with you if they wanted to?
Oh, it's so simple. It's Larry dot my last name Shack SHACK at GTAA. That's Golf Tango Alpha Alpha. Okay, that's a pretty cool acronym right there.
There
At
you go.
GTA.com.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I look forward to meeting you in person. So thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Santosh. Take care.
All right. Take care.